Everybody should know correctly.
Well, I think there's some misunderstanding. He thought that Russell did it correct, which is what kind of we thought was going to happen at Russell. But even if Russell, so what I mean is Russell, because he's your second guarantee. There's really much about it. Yeah. It's just kind of.
I know. Yeah, Oh, yeah.
Should we start? All right, I think we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. This is the Perma.cc presentation. My name is Adam Ziegler. I work here at the Harvard Law School Library. I'm the project manager for Perma and some other cool stuff here at the library. With me is our fearless leader, Dulin, who heads up the Library Innovation Lab, and then Matt Phillips, who's our lead developer on Perma. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why Perma exists, the problem of link rot, and what we're trying to do about it. And then Kim is going to talk about the role of libraries and how critical libraries are to the present and future of Perma. And Matt's going to talk about some of the technology and some of where we hope to head with the technology. We hope you have a lot of questions. We're only going to talk for a little while, so we're looking forward to whatever questions you have. It's definitely, we want to have a kind of engaging discussion if we can. If you saw the keynote from Jason Scott, it was really cool, really inspiring, talking about preserving web content on a massive, massive scale. Perma is all about doing that in a really, really focused way for a really, really focused audience that's relevant to all of us, and that's the legal world, legal scholarship and judicial opinions. So, as I said, Perma.cc is a project of the Harvard Law School Library Innovation Lab. It was built started approximately a year ago. All the work's been done by folks in the library lab, and we're really excited about the progress we've made and the traction we have so far, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So before we jump in, who here, just by show of hands, has heard of link rot, kind of knows what it is? Pretty much everybody. Has anybody in this room personally been victimized by link rot? I know I have. Yeah. Wow, that's it. Anybody like link rot? Anybody going to be offended if I say mean things about link rot? Okay. Well, we're definitely going to say some harsh things. Link rot is a monster. It's a villain. It's a disease. We despise link rot, and Perma is all about trying to find a solution to this problem. Really, no one is safe from link rot. We all are victims, readers, authors, judges, courts, scholars, journals, bloggers. Everybody faces the threat of link rot, and we all have to kind of work together to find a way to address this threat. As a lawyer, I put my lawyer hat on, and the idea of links rotting in court opinions is totally unacceptable. That is a really, really bad thing. Can you imagine what would happen if, let's say, 10% of the citations in court opinion were not blue booked correctly? That would be outrage. And now we're talking about with link rot actually not being able to get to the sources at all. So for those of you who don't know, link rot is what happens when someone cites to something on the web, a web source, and that something later degrades or goes away or gets taken down or gets changed in some way. All of that is link rot, and it means that whatever the author intended his or her reader to see is no longer available, no longer accessible to the readers. So as a lawyer, it's a terrible thing. For librarians, it's a terrible idea because that original source material is no longer preserved. And then as a developer, as a technologist, it's bad UX, bad user experience. You don't want your readers trying to follow your reasoning, follow your arguments, and hitting a 404 or page not found screen. That's terrible UX. So no one is safe from this problem of link rot. And let's take a close look at one victim in particular who we all know and love, and that's Justice Samuel Alito from the U.S. Supreme Court. Justice Alito, if you don't know, is actually quite fond of using web citations in his opinions, which is cool. He uses a lot of them. And one of the best known examples is his concurring opinion in Brown versus Entertainment Merchants Association from a couple of years ago. It was a case about the First Amendment protection for violent video games. And he filled his opinion with wonderful wonderful citations to online sources like this one, the FTC. He referenced a report from the FTC from 2004 that looked at the problem of children and violent entertainment. But if you go today to that URL, ftc.gov, etc., this is what you find. This is a government report cited by a Supreme Court justice. You cannot get that report by following the link. And I even tried to find it through the FTC search function, and it was impossible. There were hundreds and hundreds of items that the search kicked back, and I had no way of finding, without a tremendous amount of effort, what he was actually pointing to. So page not found, FTC report cited in the Supreme Court opinion, that's really unacceptable. You see there's a reference to this thing being available in the clerk of court's case file. So it's somewhere, but has anybody ever tried to contact the Supreme Court? You have?
Well, I'm a law firm librarian in Washington, D.C.,
okay.
And we actually send, library personnel there. But, they were having construction, and so they moved some of the building, and some of them they don't keep. So, the fact that there is a case file now doesn't mean there's always going to be a case file.
Wonderful. So this footnote should read, might be available in the case file. That's super interesting. So, but obviously that's not ideal for either the clerk's office or for those who are reading the opinion. So we have to do better than that. Just to show you another example from the same opinion by Justice Alito, he cited to a website that had some content about a developer saying he was going to do something, ssnat.com, footnote 14. And that today leads us to this. A very clever commentary on this problem of link rot in Supreme Court opinions. And that obviously is not what Justice Alito intended. So these kinds of mistakes or failures to preserve the source material that Justice Alito or anybody really is pointing us to, anybody at the Supreme Court is pointing us to, leads us to headlines like this, which might be true. It's probably not something the Supreme Court justices read, but still, we think they can do better. We can all do better. Justice Alito is definitely not the only one, though. This affects everybody, and our boss, Jonathan Zittrain, along with Larry Lessig and Kendra Albert, did a study last year that looked at link rot in Supreme Court opinions and in 3 Harvard law journals, and found, shockingly, that in the Supreme Court opinions, 50% of the links were rotten in some fashion. Either they pointed to pages not found, they returned 404 errors, or the content had changed in some way that meant it was no longer pointing to what it intended. 50%. That's enormous number, shocking number. It's even worse in journals. 70% of the citations to web resources found in these 3 journals were broken. Shocking. And we've actually just recently done some additional research, very preliminary, but we've used the Court Listener API. Some of you may be familiar with that. We've used their data to look at links during 2013, in opinions published in 2013 in I think 6 federal courts of appeal, and we found there were about 380 links, and about 10% of those were broken. and broken in a truly broken sense. We didn't even dive in to see whether the content had changed. That's 1 year ago. We've already got 10% rot at the federal court of appeals level. Our intern, Marcus Commodore, did that work, so we're really excited about that. We're gonna see how far we can push that work, that research. Okay, so enough about the bad guy here, which is link rot. Let's talk a little bit about the hero, the team of heroes, which is Perma, but not just Perma. It's Perma and the partnership, the consortium of libraries who we are counting on now and especially in the future to make Perma truly permanent. So what is Perma? Perma is a basic web application that you can find if you have your computer on and not doing something else more important. You can go to Perma.cc, check it out. So we're going to try a demo. So Matt's going to assist. All right, so as I said, it's Perma.cc. This is our homepage. Easy on the eyes, but super easy to use, most importantly, for the court officers, for the judges, for the clerks, for the lawyers, for the journals, for the librarians we are working closely with. From the homepage, getting started is as simple as creating an account. Email, name, and then Matt's going to log in to his account, and we are going to attempt to save the Supreme Court from a instance of link rot. All right, so let's go back to. All right, so this is another Supreme Court justice, Justice Kennedy. 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court issued its opinion in Maryland v. King, case about collection of DNA evidence, and Justice Kennedy wrote the majority opinion. He included lots of web citations in his opinion. So we're going to focus on one in particular, which is his reference to an FBI report or study or information about fingerprint identification procedures. So we're going to attempt to save this from link rot. So this is the live site today. It's functioning. We haven't studied whether it's exactly the same as he intended, but at least it's live. We take that URL, the FBI URL, we put it into the Create a Permalink field, press the infinity button. Perma captures, goes to the URL, captures what's there, shows us a thumbnail of what it has captured, and then if you click on what we call the Perma link, you can see in 3 different views a reference to the content we're talking about. The first is the live page view, which is just a look in to what's actually at that source URL. That's not a preservation or an archive. That's the live page. Screen capture is an image of what was at that URL. We also have an archived page, which is interactive, and we use the format, a work format that the Internet Archive uses for that. So that is the successful creation of a perma link. And now we're going to vest it. And vesting is something we've introduced to the process to ensure that what becomes permanent is not every single thing anybody wants to make, anybody wants to create a permalink for, but the things that our partner libraries, that our partner journals, investing organizations, our partner courts have looked at and deemed to be really worthy of this kind of grave commitment of permanence. And so we call that vesting. And certain of our partners have vesting privileges. They control how their journals, for example, or how their courts would distribute those privileges. But not everybody gets to vest. We kind of reserve that to ensure that the purposes of perma are being served. So Matt is lucky enough to have vesting privileges, so he gets a vest button. He's going to vest this particular item. It's vested. We're going to keep it permanently. And now Justice Kennedy does not have to worry about link rot for that particular citation. Now, unfortunately, the perma link, which is Perma.cc and then a code, it's not in the opinion. So nobody but those of us in the room know that permalink right now. And that's why we've done so much work to try to get the courts themselves to use this, as well as journals and anybody else who might be concerned with this. So that's the demo. Funny story before I go on to the Michigan Supreme Court. I was actually trying to find a Justice Alito link that we could save from LinkRod. And after about 15 minutes, I looked through a ton of his links and they were almost all rotted. Could not find one, so I had to revert to Justice Kennedy to save one of his citations from LinkRod. All right, so now let's talk about who's using Perma right now. We have a couple of court users. The appellate courts in Michigan have been super interested and super helpful, giving us feedback, and they've been using both at the Supreme Court level and at the Court of Appeals level Perma. This is Chief Justice Young. This is an opinion that just came out earlier this month, I believe, and the reporter of decisions for these courts is one of our vesting partners. And as you see, they have in the published opinion a permalink that will take the reader. They do have the original URL too, but they also have the permalink that will take the reader to that resource on Perma, which is cool, amazing. So this is not going to rot. Perma is going to keep it, and we're going to engage our libraries, and we'll talk more about how we do this. But we're going to make this available for forever. Michigan Court of Appeals is also using Perma. This is a case from earlier this year, Braverman versus Granger, and Mayo Clinic report. They used Perma. That is now available at Perma, and they don't have to worry about what happens to that resource if the Mayo Clinic decides to change the URL or change what's there or take it down or whatever. So that's courts. Let me talk real quick about journals. As of yesterday, we have approximately 170 published journal articles that use Perma links, which is cool. It's a wide range of organizations, everything from the Harvard Law Review to the Animal Law Review at Lewis and Clark Law School. We spend a lot of time interacting with libraries, with journals, with court officers, with reporters of decisions, talking about how we might better serve their needs and better tweak what we're doing to fit what they need. We have stats. If you go to Perma.cc/stats. That's right. If you go to Perma.cc/stats, you'll see the updated graphs, that I'll show you a few of these. But we have right now about 2,300 users, which includes about 621 vesting users. We've got a total of 23,803 links, about 800 of which are vested. We've got 102 vesting organizations. That's mainly journals, but it also could include courts and some others. And we have 54, roughly, libraries who have joined us and are helping support their local journals, which is key, and also helping us refine what Perma is and helping us think about the next step, which is true, long-term, forever style permanence. And I'm going to turn it over to Kim now to talk about libraries specifically for a few minutes.
So thanks, Adam. Am I going backward? Yeah. Why libraries? Okay, so when we started thinking about Perma, we knew that there were certain other web archiving software or applications out there that existed. And we wanted to make ours specific to law, but also we wanted to tie it into libraries, because libraries have been in the preservation business forever. People look to us as trusted entities who are sort of exist in order to preserve things. And we thought, what better institution to partner with in a web archiving space than libraries. So that's why we put libraries in the middle of it. And so I'm going to talk about the 3 major ways libraries contribute to PERMA. So first of all, libraries serve as sponsors. We call ourselves registrars. So the library is the registrar in the PERMA schema. And what the registrar is allowed to do is to say who can vest, what organizations who work with libraries have the power to vest. In most cases, that's journals, but in some cases, it could be something else. So the libraries, in the first instance, that's us, give the power of vesting to the journals or the reporters of decisions or whatever, and then those people do the PERMA links within the context of the report, the court decision, or the journal. So it's not much heavy lifting for libraries to become a registrar. Essentially, what you do is you say, you contact us, contact me, contact anybody here at Harvard, and say, I want to be a registrar. We will then ask you for your library URL, for your website, for who you want on your staff to be the registrar person. And again, it's really simple. All the person has to do is say, here are our journals. We have 6 journals. The names of them are X, Y, and Z, and enter those in the PERMA, into the PERMA website. And then the hard work of doing the vesting goes to the students on the journals. So that's fairly simple. And I'm happy if any of you want to email me right after this, I will get you guys all set up. It's pretty broad. We leave pretty broad discretion to the libraries as to whom they want to say can vest. In general, it's just been the journals, but if you had a professor, I suppose, who was writing a book and wanted to go ahead and vest the links right now, you could probably do that. But we're not going to say no. So, and we've actually, I think, done that here at Harvard. Okay, so that's the simple part, just being a supporter. And also, once you're a PERMA partner, we put you on our website and we say, this is, so you're one of the 55 libraries who are PERMA partners. Also, what we've been getting lately is we've been getting email directly from the journals, and some journals have been sending us email saying, you know what, our library isn't a PERMA partner, but we want to use PERMA. And so in that case, we will say, okay, give us the contact information of your library, and we'll go that way and get it that way. So that works too. Okay, the second thing that we're having libraries do is serve as mirrors for PERMA content. Now, this is totally discretionary. If you're a PERMA partner, you do not have to serve as a mirror. But the idea is, in order to obtain redundancy for the content on PERMA, we would like to have some of our library partners serve as a mirror site. So essentially, they will have exactly the same content at one of our partners who's going to do this is Stanford. They will have a server at Stanford that will have exactly the same content on it as we have here at Harvard. And so the idea is, if something goes wrong with the Harvard server, the content's going to be on the Stanford server and on other, and it's robust and it's perpetual and it's safe. So there's some libraries don't have the wherewithal or the financial, ability to have their IT services find a server for them. Maybe they're a small library or something. They don't have access to great IT support. So right now we're developing something we're calling PERMA boxes, and a PERMA box is essentially just a little box, and that's what this is up here. It's not exactly what it is, but it's a prototype. And the PERMA box will be a mirror, and it will mirror exactly what's on PERMA. We will ship that PERMA box to whatever library wants it or whatever court wants it, and it will be just put it under your desk and plug it into your network. Yeah. And it will work. And if it doesn't work, if it fails, ship it back to us, and we'll send you a new one. So we recently received a very nice grant from the LIPA, the Legal Information Preservation Alliance, to help us develop this prototype. So these are the two ways that we're going to do mirroring at this point, although we're constantly thinking about how could we do mirroring in different ways, and we're always anxious for people to give us suggestions. Okay. The third important role that libraries play is the dark archive access. So we are going out and fetching and caching content from the web, and it's being pulled in and kept. There are cases where someone might issue a DMCA takedown to us and say this shouldn't have been cached. I don't want it up here, it's violating copyright or something. So in that case, we will immediately comply with DMCA provisions and take it down, and we will put it in our dark archive. So it will be not available to the public, no one can see it. But as you can see here, this is what the message they'll get. This link has been dark archived. Contact a librarian to get a copy. So under the terms of the DMCA and under the terms of the copyright laws, if something's been taken down from the web and dark archive, a person still can go to a library that's a PERMA partner and access it. And so that's the role that the PERMA libraries will play. And this is what's happened in the past and in the print world, and we expect it to be just as viable in the digital world. And finally, this is just a map of our current PERMA partners. And we're up to 55, that's yesterday. But we have international partners. We have the University of Melbourne and the Bodley and Law Library at Oxford. And they were some of our very first partners. They were really anxious. And we recently got some inquiries from other foreign universities and some international ports too. So we're hoping to, have everybody join on board. Come on board. Join us. Okay.
So I'll talk about sort of 5 points that I think are interesting in the tech side of things, and then I'll pass it back to Adam for wrap up. So I'm going to revisit something Kim covered a little bit because I think it's maybe the most interesting thing of the PERMA project, this network of archives. So the idea is, in the physical library world, we sort of keep things safe because we have copies of the same thing at multiple libraries. If something happens to one, it's not the end of the world because a friendly library has a copy and we can get it from them. So we want to do the same thing in the digital world with this mirroring effort. So the thing we're doing now is when someone creates an archive on Perma.cc, it pings a list of mirrors, and those are just 2 mirrors that we control right now. It pings those mirrors and it says, hey, I just created a new archive. Here's the URL if you want to grab a copy. So in real time, it goes and grabs that copy and stores it locally. And so these are sort of full clones of the original create node. And so, that's interesting to create these sort of full copies. But we're not sure, as Kim said, that everyone's going to want this sort of full massive infrastructure. It might be more interesting to have just a slice of it. So that's what we might do with these PERMA boxes. These things are actually a distributed file system. So PERMA will write out to these PERMA boxes just chunks of the PERMA archive. And these PERMA boxes are super cheap. We just put together the prototype yesterday. It's like $350, and it's kind of like that big. So it's very feasible to have a bunch of them around. So that's the write piece. Things get created at a central location and they get written out to this network of mirrors. The read piece is really interesting too at the DNS level when a request comes in for that PERMA archive. Remember in the case we just saw, you see Perma.cc/ID. When something comes in for that archive, a request, that'll get round robined to a partner. So it distributes the load of serving these things up. And it keeps the network sort of on its feet. You're expected to serve these things up, so you better have them. So that's the interesting piece I think the interesting things with the archives, so now that we know that we have a network of these things, we have copies, we want to make sure the copies are things that are good, they're durable, they're good copies. And so we do that in a couple of different ways. The first way is we write 2 archive types out to disk, right? We take that PNG image, and this is interesting because the image is just static. It can be replayed on just about any device that can browse the web. So it's very universal, and hopefully it'll be that way for a whole bunch of years. The second thing we do is we write the work archive, WARC, which is a really standard interchange format. It's what the Internet Archive uses, and really anyone who does web archiving. So that writes the source and the assets, things like images and CSS. All that stuff gets written to this work archive. So we're creating this durability with these 2 different archives that can be replayed on just about any device. We've also architected this thing in a way that's scalable. We've sort of split the pieces up and loosely coupled them. So it's a message-based interface. It all works off of a queue. So on the front-end web piece grabs these messages. It says this person wants to archive this URL, puts that thing in a queue. The back-end workers create the archives for those things and then pass those messages back to the front end saying, hey, this thing's ready. On the back end, we have Phantom.js headless browser creating these static images, and then a PyWB library from the Internet Archive to create the works. I want to touch on, so this is very much an effort that's in progress. So I want to touch on some things that I think are interesting that we're currently working on. We're working on this mirroring piece. We realize it might not be feasible to ask every library to store a complete copy of everything. So what does this look like? Is it the Perma box? Is it something else? The second piece we're really interested in the next few months is making the archive searchable. So maybe you know a URL and you want to see what archives Perma has on disk. And to do that, we're going to implement the Minto architecture from Los Alamos National Labs group that put that out recently. It's pretty cool. So that'll allow you to search for, show me all archives from ssnat.com and see what Perma has. We're also working on an API and batch processing feature. So currently you have to copy and paste every URL one at a time, which is sort of annoying. But you can imagine having an API that maybe speaks to a batch processing macro or something. You can copy and paste a whole draft, a book or something, a blog post. It'll create those archives in batch. One of the most interesting things I think of Perma is that it's being developed in the open, and it's very friendly. So all code is licensed through an MIT GPL license. It all happens on GitHub. You can go right now and look at all the code. And we also use GitHub issues to manage enhancements and track bug reports and build milestones so you can see what's happening in the next Perma release. Now I'm going to pass it back to Adam.
All right, so we're obviously doing a lot of cool stuff. What's next for us? As I said at the beginning, we're really focused right now on this narrow kind of use case we know very well: judges, courts, really law libraries, legal journals, getting a lot of good education from that. But we aren't the only. This community isn't the only one that has this problem, and so we're definitely thinking long term about how to solve the problem on a larger scale for people beyond the legal community. We're also getting lots of inbound inquiries, interesting ones, from law firms and publishers and non-academic journals, folks who recognize the problem and are thinking about solving it in various ways. And there's at least the potential that we might think about monetizing that in some way to help ensure the long-term financial stability of the current project. And so that's another interesting issue, interesting question that we're having some fun thinking about. So we'll see where that takes us. But we have a lot of ambition in this project and a lot of hope that we can continue to do amazing things. So we definitely want you to join us. Matt said the code is open. So any developers among you, please feel free to jump on there and contribute. We love that. Some of our current team members started out as volunteers on the project, and that kind of morphed into them becoming temporary people. And now permanent people, not promising any jobs, but it's a really cool, strange, in a good way, team, and we're having a lot of fun with it. Sign up for Perma, use it yourself. If you're at a library, if you're at a law school, find out if your library is on, and if not, ask them to get in touch with us, with me. The email is info@Perma.cc, and we will answer whatever questions they have. We will help them get on board if they're ready to go. Same goes for journalists. So we're really looking for partners. We're looking to build our community, and we definitely hope you will join us. So that's it for the canned presentation. We'd love to answer questions or discuss any issues.
This is probably real basic, but I understand if when the citation is written, someone creates the permalink, and so you'll see the permalink, and anybody out there now can click on it and go to the perma, the page, and it's not lost. When Matt just vested that citation from the Supreme Court opinion, does that help anybody other than someone who knows about perma? I mean, that's not like I went to the opinion and I just see the link and I click on it. It's not going to take me to the perma cycle, is it?
It only helps people who know about the Perma URL. So
how would you find that? Let's say I click on the link and there's a link route and I say, oh, maybe this is one of the 1% or half of 1% that might now possibly be on Perma. But how would I go and find that?
Well, currently you can't. If it's not in the opinion or the document, if the Perma URL is not in the opinion or the original document, you're not going to find it. Certainly, people who are building websites to serve up court opinions and things in HTML could potentially supplement what they're providing with some Perma information that might lead readers to the Perma link. Memento is going to help with this problem, make it easier for people to surface archived versions, including ones served by Perma. But ultimately, I think we're really focused on driving adoption at the kind of authorship stage, because that's really where, I mean, it shouldn't be the library or Perma after the fact capturing the thing Justice Kennedy wanted us to see. It should be Justice Kennedy or his clerks or the folks at the court capturing at the moment of authorship, so everybody knows that's the thing, and sticking it in the opinion and making sure everybody knows where it's at. Sure.
Along similar lines, so my library just became a Perma partner in the middle of the spring semester, so I haven't got my journals into it, but we're going to dive in at the end of the summer. So I did wonder, though, how this works. If there's like a particularly salacious blog post that every law professor is citing to in their law journal articles this year, and one Perma vesting partner has already made a permalink, is there a way for me to find it so that we're not ending up with 6 permalinks to the same blog post?
I mean, I can answer that. Why don't you take a shot at it?
Yeah, so currently there isn't. You can, I suppose in your management panel, you do have a list of links that you've created,
Okay.
but you won't see things created at your organization. So maybe at some point you can sort of search for it in Memento.
Okay.
So if your professor is reading that blog or reading some other professor's blog about that blog and sees the permalink, your professor can take that same permalink and insert it in her blog post about the same thing. So that would serve the same purpose for her. But we kind of think of authorship as the moment when it's going to be created, and we're not too worried about having multiple permas to the same source.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm not sure I fully understand the concept of vesting and how that's different from what you did first.
Okay. Yeah. So vesting is not self-explanatory, definitely. The idea is to have some gatekeeping that determines what will be kept permanently and what won't be. So if you if you're not a vesting user, so you personally don't have vesting privileges, you create a permalink. That isn't permanent. It lasts for approximately at least 2 years, and we'll do some things to give you an opportunity to grab that if before it goes away. We're not going to just throw it away, obviously. But we're not committing ourselves or the libraries who have chosen to participate with mirrors to keeping that forever. It's only the moment of vesting that says we're going to take this thing, which has been kind of vetted by some people we trust, and we put it in the permanent archive. That's going to be, everyone's going to sort of buy into the commitment to keep that. So that's the role of vesting, is to have some mechanism to sift mistaken links, bad stuff people captured at the moment because they thought they might use it, but they never used it. Sift that stuff out and keep it for a while. Allow people to think about using it, but really focus the permanence on things that have been baked into published work, baked into core documents.
So if my library is a registrar, and we all have, and so forgive the questions, I'm not actually the named administrator for membership. So the journals have vesting rights.
It's up to the library to determine, but generally, yes. So the library has the power to decide what organizations get vesting rights. And at the organizational level, everybody who's associated with that organization has vesting rights. So if you think of the typical library, law journal, law student hierarchy, if you want to call it that, the librarian decides, all right, these 4 journals are going to be vesting organizations, and then whoever runs those journals, or whatever internal governance procedures they have, they decide to dole out vesting privileges and kind of authorize the law students on that journal to all have vesting privileges. That means each one of those individuals will view a permalink, will have that button that says vest, and will have the power to vest. And when they do, that act of vesting is tied to them as the individual user account that vested it, to the journal that they belong to the registrar or library that authorizes it. So there's this sort of chain of custody idea that we want to impose a little bit of seriousness and responsibility to active committing it to the collection.
And in the court realm, the courts so far have, rather than have their libraries, they wanted their reporters of decisions office to be the registrar, which is fine. We don't, it's up to, we can be as flexible as courts want to be, but that's how they do it.
So is the real purpose of vesting not so much that, like what we did as an example, but the author of the article or the editors of the law review are going to see a link, they'll click on it, they'll see that it exists, they'll vest it, then they'll know what the new permalink URL is, and then that's going to go into the law review article right after regular URL, so that the purpose of vesting is to create the permalink that can then go in the article or in the opinion.
The permalink itself is actually created before vesting. It precedes vesting. So vesting is a look by someone with authorized eyes to confirm that the thing that we're about to put in our journal article or book or court opinion is what we want it to be. It is what it purports to be. It refers to the right content, the archive functions, for example. And at that point, when all that confirmation has cleared, then the editor, the publisher, the person from the reporter of decisions office can say, all right, we're ready to go. Vest, take that permalink, stick it into our written opinion, and for court opinions, that's a big deal, and it's good to go.
How long does that take?
The vesting process?
Yeah, so that you can get out the article or whatever, knowing that 5 years from now you're going to click on a permanent link, and it's not going to say sorry.
Yeah, the vesting process itself is just a click of a button by a user that has vesting privileges, and it's really just you look at the screen compared to what the author intended. And if the screen, the capture fits the intention, you're good to go. Vest, and that perma URL is now part of the permanent archive.
Do you envision, like in the future, perhaps, like, say I'm a investor, I'm an author, I'm writing something, I want to permalink this page, but also be able to put tags and meta tags on it so that that page is saved into a database so that, someone else can permalink and find that page based on the subject headings?
Yeah, there's a lot that we're doing that's relevant to that. So we are currently providing users through the dashboard the ability to annotate the links they've created, for notes, for titles, to do some other things that make them useful. Courts, for example, sometimes want to organize their permalinks based on term or based on session or whatever is relevant to them. Same goes for journals. So there's lots of organizational functionality that we're working on building out. The other part of the question, if I understood correctly, was are we going to make it so that the perma sites or the permalinks are findable by others apart from the permalink itself? So it is like a searchable database where you can do some meta-tag-based searching of what's in the perma database. We haven't focused too much on that. Limited that kind of access to the person who created the permalink and kind of the chain of custody that goes along with that. We have talked about taking some metadata about when something was created, when it rotted, when it was cited, and displaying that on the page that the viewer would see if he or she clicked on the permalink, and to provide some interesting context about each citation. So we've explored some of that. We haven't really implemented that yet, but you want to add?
I think you're right. I think we're staying pretty focused with Perma. I think the best way I've heard it pitched is it's a tool that allows you, the author, to create something that the reader is going to see. So it's a tool for the author-reader relationship. And that's what we've really focused on, sort of like create one perma, you put that citation in, you know exactly what you want your reader to see. And maybe this discovery layer is interesting, but we're not quite sure how it's going to work yet. Sure.
So I'm really sold on the idea. I think it's great. But my law reviews and journals are very slow to change their workflows and adapt anything new. So I'm curious if you have any success stories or suggestions on how to really sell this to our users.
Good question. So we have lots of success stories. If you search on Westlaw for, do a search for permalinks, you'll see tons of journals that are using it right now, saving their readers from link rot. And you could also check those same journals before they started using Perma, or check your journals that are not using Perma and see what the links are doing there. A lot of them are going to be rotted. We also are talking with the folks at the Blue Book, and they recognize this is important. The issue of link rot is a hugely important issue for the Blue Book. They care about archives and making sure that people are citing the things that are there. And so we have some optimism. I mean, the Blue Book is apart from the Harvard Law Library. Obviously, it's run by the law reviews at multiple schools, including Harvard, and they have total control over what they decide to do. But we're optimistic that they are going to recognize the problem, offer suggested solutions, and certainly Perma would be one of those.
I also think once we get the batch processing tool ready to go, it will make it easier, because it is a little bit onerous to do one by one. But so,
And the batch would be they could just save all the links to do it all in one speed.
yeah, they would have like a submission, and then it would just go through it.
Sure.
Yes.
Do you happen to know, you just mentioned the other questioner that examples can be found when looking for journal articles, say on Westlaw. Do you happen to know, is that something that would be searchable? Does it say the URL within an article have Perma in it such that?
It always is Perma.cc / an ID. So if you do the Perma.cc or even Perma, exclamation point in my training, that'll yield. That's how I did the service, come up with 170 examples.
And is there a list on the website anywhere of the participating institutions? I know you had a graph.
The libraries, yes. We do not have a list of the journals, but we have a list of the libraries. Any other questions? Sure.
The mirror process, is it possible if you're not in a position to mirror everything, it can be broken down by maybe just your state or something like that?
We're working on that. That's a great question. That makes a lot of sense. And whether it's state, some libraries might want to sort of help preserve the citations used by the courts in their jurisdiction.
Or all the law schools in your state.
All the law schools, right, or even subject matter. If we get beyond law, you can think about, the law library wanting to do law-related things, and business school library wanting to do something else. So we are definitely investigating and doing some thinking and designing around that. It's not there yet, but
It'll be on your blog, though, right?
we don't have a blog yet, but we are working on it.
We have a newsletter for our partners.
Yes. If you become a library partner, you will enjoy the newsletter on a semi-regular basis.
It's an irregular publication.
All right, well, thank you all very much. Let us know if you have any questions. Please follow up, info@perma.cc. Kim, Matt, and Adam. Thanks.
No, I haven't.
So how's
But I sent it to her. Yeah.
I never know what to wear.
We want to push different scale.
She lives, she exists.
You work?
We haven't.
Trying to get them to, and I have I've only used it a couple of yeah, I'm very new to person, so pretty great how to sell it. But luckily there's so much and actually, I created those are pretty and the child was from a professor.
It's a screen image. That's a.
I don't actually I told her how to sign it. Yeah, so that's like really nice thing is very still selling.
I wouldn't do much.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we're very much. But the games are
Enjoy the quarter. Yeah, I am. So I third one. Oh yeah, okay. Because
So Kim, I think you're the one of them.
Yeah.
We do. I don't know.
I assume it's next to us.
Well, I thought the whole.
So I think
Which is your
Well, I
Yeah, and we'll be so.
Yes.
So